Hi, welcome to OpenLabyrinth Virtual Patients. So what the heck are virtual patients anyway? Well, for starters, we're not talking virtual reality and goggles and Oculus Rift and all that kind of stuff. We're talking very simple stories, basically. So first of all, why would you want to consider OpenLabyrinth? Well, it is free, it's open source, all the code's downloadable from GitHub, etc. If you want to roll your own, as it were. More importantly, it's an open standard. It fully supports the ANSI virtual patient standard, and so that means that your cases, if you want to move to another platform, or if your local server dies, you can move them around very easily. The content's what matters in the long term. So yeah, we're talking about stories, we're talking about the power of the narrative, and our cases, we like to think of them as kind of like choose your own adventure. Remember the choose your own adventure books? You get to the bottom of page 36 and do you want to slay the dragon, or do you want to slay the princess and rescue the dragon, just to be a little bit different. The idea being that you can work through the case in a number of different ways, creating your own story as you go. So to do that, they need to emphasize that you can do branching cases rather than just standard linear cases, and the branches or the decisions should have consequences. Don't just have your users work through simple steps like do you want to take a history, do you want to examine, etc. Give them choices that matter. We're trying to move away from the classic header case, the HEIDR, history, examination, investigation, diagnosis, treatment, etc., into something which is a little bit more variability. The very first case I was introduced to, the Sarah Jane case, an excellent case written by the group at St George's University in London, and it was a beautiful example of what you can do with just text. There isn't a picture in the whole thing, and as Alistair Cook once said, the pictures are better on the radio. And in this particular case, it's just text descriptions. There's no pictures, but you get a very strong sense of what's happening. The smelly dog in the corner, things like that, and but a very powerfully constructed story. I'm ashamed to say that I killed Sarah Jane the first 5 times out of 6 that I played the case, because you had to figure out early on that this was a very sick child that you had to treat and move aggressively. You couldn't waste time with a whole bunch of fancy investigations and treatment to figure out what's going on. You needed to get cracking, or else she would meet her demise. So while you can have just very plain text, OpenLabyrinth will handle pretty much anything you can put on a web page. You can put in videos, you can put in rich multimedia pictures, lay out your case just however you want. So, and we've got some lovely examples. Even in the old version of OpenLabyrinth, the previous version 2, we have some lovely interprofessional cases at the Pine Library, so you might want to check those out as well. So how are virtual patients used? Well, typically in the past they've been used for simple case presentations, often for physicians or medical students, residents, etc., just to play on their own. But we've been finding them more useful if you use them along with small group discussions, along with projects, etc., to enrich things that are going on. Or you can take a flipped classroom approach, have the learners explore the case content at home, and then discuss what they learned, what the choices, the consequences were in the class, etc. So within OpenLabyrinth, pretty much everything is tracked: the timing, the paths taken, the counters, etc. So you can do things like track blood pressures and fluids given, etc., just by assigning your own little scores there. Also some different graph outputs with time taken on nodes, or choices made, priorities made, etc. Or even simple path analysis, watching how each user worked their way through a set of nodes on a labyrinth. We found this to be very powerful for assessing clinical reasoning. How do docs think? How do they problem solve, and how do they work their way through a case? Good stuff. Alright, so what do you need to write cases? Well, first of all, you need OpenLabyrinth installed on a web server. Very simple to do for any average techie, but if that's more than you want to be bothered with, just email us and ask for a demo account, and we can give you something to test drive. Most importantly, you need interested clinicians who can tell good stories and just lay out good cases. It is helpful to have somebody on your team who has just a basic knowledge of HTML or simple web stuff, just sometimes for debugging your cases, but that's by no means essential. So for some great case examples, check out our server at vp.openlabyrinth.ca. It's one of the servers that's out there. There's a virtual patient case on virtual patients, VP on VPs, which just gives you a bit more of a sense of how to do this and what they're about, etc. We have a linear but fairly rich case about dizziness. We have a mobile case on the street drug guide. If you really want to see what OpenLabyrinth can do with lots of complexity, we actually created a board game. Do you remember old careers? Well, we created medical careers, and you can play an online board game as a group or individually, however you want. So check us out, come on down, have some fun.